Who runs the North in the NFC? Can anyone challenge Alabama? Are the Oakland Raiders pretenders or contenders? And who will end their championship drought in baseball? Find out next. MCTV Sports 101 starts now. Hey there, sports fans, and welcome to MCTV Sports 101. I'm Kyle Stafford.
And I'm Abby Aldrich, filling in for Billy this week.
Well, it's great to have you on the show, Abby.
Thank you very much for having me here.
You ready to get started?
I am. Let's go for it.
All right. There are no more unbeaten teams left in the NFL as the Minnesota Vikings fell on the road to the Philadelphia Eagles 21-10 Sunday afternoon. The Vikings are now 5-1 on the season and currently hold a one-game lead over the Green Bay Packers in the NFC North. With the Detroit Lions also gained in the standings, Abby, who has the advantage in the division?
You know, Kyle, I still got to say it's the Packers. You know how I am with my Packers. But, let's start off. Bears, I think it's a lost season for the Bears, obviously. I mean,
Jay Cutler might return for him, but
maybe. But
it's
then
Jay Cutler.
It's going to be interceptions after another. And Brian Hoyer, I mean, he broke his arm against the Packers on Thursday night. They just had a lot of problems going back, even though injuries have been the main issue for the entire NFC North this season. The Lions, they have dealt with a lot of injuries themselves, but they're on a 3-game winning streak right now.
Matt Stafford's playing great
football. He looks hot right now. But, I still don't think Stafford is at the caliber of Aaron Rodgers. But, Vikings, they did show that they looked human this past weekend. They had 4 turnovers, 3 on offense and 1 on special teams. And they had trouble protecting Sam Bradford. You cannot win a game whenever you're going to have a quarterback getting there that much. It's just... Yeah,
I mean, I agree. Bradford was pretty much dominated by the Eagles' defensive front, and they had a lot of replacements on the offensive line for the Vikings. They had a lot of new guys starting. I was sold on the Vikings a little early. I think the defense is the best in the division. They're one of the best in football. But my thing with the Vikings is I'm not sure about that offense because it's Sam Bradford still. I'm not sold on Sam Bradford as a quarterback.
You don't have Adrian Peterson
still. No running game at all there. I mean, I believe they're dead last in the NFL in rushing. I think Green Bay and Minnesota are really the top 2, but I say keep an eye on Detroit. I like the way Matt Stafford's playing. They don't have Calvin Johnson, but they're still rolling this year. Marvin Jones has been a big-time man for him, 623 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. I love what Matthew Stafford's doing, and he's not turned over the ball. Only 4 interceptions this season. He's a guy that had 13 last year. He's had 20 and 19 before in a season. So he's a guy that turns it over, but I really like what Detroit's doing. But, Green Bay, I'm not sold on them. You know a little bit more about Green Bay than I do.
Aaron Rodgers isn't having the kind of season that he has in the past. I think that's obvious. Everybody knows about it. But I still don't think anything's wrong with him. Yes, their running game has been a problem, especially with Eddie Lacy being out for weeks now and James Starks. You don't have him either. But, receivers are picking it up a little bit. Ty Montgomery, Randall Cobb, and Devontae Adams each had at least 10 catches in the game against Chicago. Take it is Chicago, but still, that is very impressive. And then Ty Montgomery and Cobb each had over 100 total yards on offense.
Right.
Still, that is very impressive. Jordy Nelson is still coming off of that injury. He's not going to be playing the same caliber of football that he was playing in 2014 before he got hurt.
He still has some numbers this year, though.
Exactly. He had 5 touchdowns already. Him and Rodgers, though, there's something special. They have that connection, and I think it's going to continue. You're going to see that in games to come. And Packers have only lost to the Cowboys and the Vikings, and those are still 2 of the best teams in the NFL right now. Packers have dominated the NFC North, though. I mean, Packers, in the past 5 seasons, Packers have taken 4 out of those 5 NFC North championships.
Right.
I still think it is the Packers division.
So you think they'll win it this year?
I agree. Yes, I do. I think it'll come down to the Packers-Vikings game on Christmas Eve at Lambeau Field. But, when you come into Lambeau, it's hard to win there.
It is.
Lambeau is one of those stadiums in the NFL.
I think the Vikings will take it for right now because I'll go with their defense, but I think Green Bay still can catch up to them in the division as well.
I don't think that the Packers are going to let them win.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to happen. Number 1 Alabama continues to dominate their opponents as they rolled to a 33-14 victory over number 6 Texas A&M. The Tide are now 8-0 on the season and have been by far the most impressive team in college football thus far. With only 6 weeks left in the regular season, Kyle, is there any team that can challenge the Crimson Tide?
Well, no. I think this is Alabama and the field is below. There's just not a team, especially after Ohio State lost this past weekend to Penn State. Ohio State's a team where they can look dominant at times, and then there's times where you're watching the game and you're just like, who is that playing football? Because they just don't show up at times. Left on their schedule, they have at LSU, which is tough. It's a night game. It's always tough to play at LSU. After what Leonard Fournette did last Saturday, I mean, my goodness, he came back, he looked fresh. I just don't think LSU has enough, even though their offense has been better. I look at the game at home against Auburn, the Iron Bowl at the end of the year. Auburn is playing really good football right now. Their defense is legit. Their only 2 losses was to A&M and Clemson. I really like Auburn. Their offense is coming around, but I just think Alabama's so much better. And outside the SEC, I think there's only really 3 teams, Ohio State, like I talked about, Michigan, and Washington. Those are the only other 3 teams I see that are complete right now. I'm not a fan of what Clemson has done this year. I've been down on them all year. Although I did pick them to beat Louisville. I don't like really any other team's chances. I think Washington has a legit shot, but you're not sold on them either because they're in the Pac-12, and who have they really played?
I mean, and you got to think about playing A&M. Out of the past 3 games that Alabama has had, A&M was going to be the biggest test for them. Yeah. I mean, whenever they played Tennessee, man, 49-10, they made that game look easy.
Yeah, they
did. It was just ridiculous. So, yes, they still have LSU and Auburn to play, but, they held the Aggies to 0 offensive yards in the first quarter. They sacked Trevor Knight 5 times, and then they held Knight to 164 passing yards. The A&M team that we've seen, that wasn't them.
Oh, and Trevor Knight, remember, he lit them up a couple years ago in the Sugar Bowl when he was at Oklahoma. So you knew Nick Saban had to be reminded of that before the game. That defense is legit. I've seen Alabama the last few years, and they're one of the best every year. This defense may be the best I have ever seen at Alabama. Reuben Foster, Minka Fitzpatrick, Jonathan Allen. These guys are in the backfield every play. They're sacking the quarterbacks, but they're forcing turnovers and scoring touchdowns. And you see Jonathan Allen running in a touchdown last week against A&M. This is a legit football team. They could probably take on some NFL teams right now. Especially Cleveland. I don't want to go into Cleveland here, but I think that they're definitely the best in football. I don't think it's close right now. They're just blowing everybody out.
It's Alabama's year.
It is.
Game 1 of the World Series went to the Cleveland Indians as they shut out the Chicago Cubs 6-0 last night, thanks to a dominant performance by Corey Kluber. Neither team has celebrated a World Series title in some time, as the Cubs have not won since 1908, while the Indians have not won since 1948. The Cubs will look to even the series tonight as Jared Arrieta matches up with Trevor Bauer. Kyle, what's your reaction to the Game 1, and how will tonight's game play out?
Well, I thought it was a little surprising last night because Corey Kluber did look dominant, but I was kind of shocked at John Lester. He looked a little rattled early on. The Indians got to him by running on the base pads, and he walked a couple people. So I think last night, the place to be was last night in Cleveland. I mean, the ring ceremony was, I believe, an hour, 30 minutes before. So you had the banner being risen, and then they win their first World Series game. Hadn't been to the World Series since '97 when they lost, haven't won since 1948. So you're talking about Cleveland was the place to be. I could see how they won that game. Right now, I think the Cubs as a whole would be the better team. But the Indians have been so dominant this postseason despite missing 2 of their best pitchers in Carlos Carrasco and Danny Salazar, who have been out with injury. I will say I was surprised with the Cubs bringing back Kyle Schwarber last night. I didn't think that was a great move because the man hasn't played since April in a professional MLB setting. Now he has played in the fall league. But he did good last night, had a double last night. I think the Cubs, if they win tonight, they got Jake Arrieta going against Trevor Bauer. It's supposed to be rainy and cold, so we'll see whichever pitcher can handle it.
They moved the game up an hour because of that, didn't they? Well, I mean, just look at these statistics. The Game 1 losers in the past 6 World Series, have lost the last 6 World Series, and then 12 of the last 13, and 17 of the past 19. Going all the way back to 1997, only 2 teams have survived that statistics: the 2002 Angels and the 2009 Yankees. I mean, it's hard to believe in a 7-game series, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if it works out this year. Cub fans, they've been waiting a long time, but so has Indians. So it should be a good end to that series.
I agree. And I mean, Kubler last night, he set a World Series record by striking out 8 of the 9 batters by the 3rd inning. That is impressive.
It is.
He's going into every single game acting like it's just a normal game, and it's not a playoff game.
He said that even last night after the game. He said, "I got to take it like every other game."
He's so composed, and it's just, he's going with it.
The Oakland Raiders have been one of the biggest surprises of the NFL season early on as they sit in first place of the AFC West after the 33-16 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Despite being extremely young, the Raiders are loaded with talent and striving for the franchise's first playoff appearance since 2002 when they lost in the Super Bowl to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Abby, I know there's still a lot of football left to be played, but are you sold on the Raiders as playoff contenders?
You know, Kyle, I think I am. I don't think that they're going to win the AFC West. I obviously think the Broncos are going to take that. But, you know, as a wild card contender, I think they can make a run in the playoffs if they continue playing the type of football that they're playing. You know, look at who they've played so far, though. You got the Chargers, Titans, Ravens, Jaguars. I mean, they're playing decent teams, but, I mean, they're also proving themselves this season. It's like they have something to prove. You know, what's also very impressive is for this young team, they're 4-0 on the road.
They are, yeah.
That does not happen, especially here. They've only done that twice in their team history.
Yeah, I mean, and two of their losses came at home, like you talked about, being undefeated on the road, which I find that really surprising because I would feel Oakland is a tough place to play. When the fans come out, it is a tough place. I love what Oakland is doing. I think they're contenders this year. Now, playoff contenders, I think maybe next year and the year after, they are Super Bowl legit contenders in the next couple of years. I think they have young talent on defense. I know their defense has really struggled this year, ranking dead last in a lot of the categories, but they have one of the best players in football, and Khalil Mack. I love what he does as a linebacker. Bruce Irvin came over to that team. They got some young guys, but I am a huge fan of Derek Carr. I think right now he's going to be an elite quarterback. He's not there just yet, but I love what he's doing. He has two great weapons, and Amari Cooper, a young budding star in the league, and then, of course, Michael Crabtree, who's really saved his career by going to Oakland.
Michael Crabtree is having himself one of those years. I mean, him and Derek Carr, they're something special.
Yeah.
You know, he has proven to be a consistent outside threat. I mean, he's had 6 touchdowns on the year so far.
I mean, he's looked good. He's really helped my fantasy team, so I really appreciate that. But, you know, I love what Michael Crabtree has done. He's becoming that go-to guy on 3rd, 4th down. He's had a lot of touchdown catches or 2-point conversions this year, especially in late-game situations. I love what they're doing. I love what Jack Del Rio's doing. He's not afraid to let these young guys and go out there and play. I think Oakland's legit. Will they win the division? That is a tough division. I mean, every team is legit in that division, even the Chargers. It'll be tough. I think they at least make the wild card, though.
I agree with that completely.
The NBA season tipped off last night. Abby, give me one thing fans should keep an eye on this season.
You know, one person I think you got to look at is Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
You know, especially since Kevin Durant moved on to the Golden State Warriors. You know, 1 month after he signed there, Westbrook signed a contract extension with Oklahoma City, and he would have been a free agent at the end of the season. Like, he's already on the right side with the fans. He is just, and I think he's going to have one of those seasons. He has now become the man in Oklahoma City. Like, he's no longer that sidekick to Durant. He was huge in getting the Thunder to the NBA Finals, or one game away from the NBA Finals this past year. I mean, look at these statistics. Without Durant in 55 games, Westbrook averaged 30.5 points. He had 9.2 assists and 7.6 rebounds. It's going to be a big adjustment. Exactly. You know, I think it's going to be a big adjustment. They're going to have to continue with aggressive defense and continue to play tough. But I think he's going to be one worth watching every night.
Yeah, I think so too. He's an exciting player, even with when Durant was there. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does on a full season by himself this year. I think the Thunder have some good pieces. Are they where they were? Probably not without Durant. But the NBA is changed so much. You know, watching the games last night, seeing Kevin Durant in a Golden State uniform, and watching Pau Gasol play for the Spurs. And
I mean, the Spurs won 129 to 100.
Yeah. Right now,
Russell
Westbrook's probably smiling right now. But, you know, I think one thing for me to keep an eye on is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think they're a young team that has a legit shot. I think they're a playoff team this year. I think the West, you know, has some good teams. Although it's Cleveland and Golden State, I think, right now. Even with the loss, I think Golden State's still one of the best. But I love Minnesota. The hire of Tom Thibodeau was probably the best thing they could have done. That was a steal to get him. He has never missed the playoffs as a head coach. I love Karl-Anthony Towns. I think he's going to be a legit MVP candidate this year. Andrew Wiggins continues to grow. And Chris Dunn, I think that guy was a huge steal in the draft for them. I love what they're doing. Keep it up, Minnesota, because I think they got something growing.
It is a long season ahead.
It is. 82 games. Here we go. Well, that's our show for this week's edition of MCTV Sports 101. Join us next week for the latest big-name stories in sports. I'm Kyle Stafford.
And I'm Abby Aldrich. Till next time.